Hello, this is Kev Tango here, and I'm about to Duracoat this CZ52, just like I did my RIA Rock Island Armory 1911, which came out kind of like this. Didn't turn out too bad. It was my first attempt at Duracoating. I polished up a few of the things, took off the parkerizing, changed the grips, and it turned out good enough for me anyway. So we're going to do the same thing for this CZ52. Now, as you notice, these aren't the original grips. The original Bakelite grips I got rid of, and I found these from on a gun broker. They were from a defunct company now. At least I think they're out of business. CZgrips.com. I like these pretty well. I'm going to keep these, so I'm going to Duracoat the frame, the slide, and probably these grips as well. So I'm going to go ahead and field strip this. You don't need me to show you how to do that. There's a million sites on the internet, especially on YouTube, that'll show you how to field strip a CZ52. So I'll get back with you as soon as I have it done. Okay, we've got this field stripped, and as you can see, I've taken off this band. It's just a retaining band. It's just one band to these grips. So I'll take those off. That's what it looks like here. And as you can see, I've taken the parkerization off. That's kind of standard on a lot of these. And I did a little attempt at bluing. Mixed results. It was alright. Could have went through the process a few more times, but well, I'm going to try it black. In fact, it's HK black, according to the people at Duracoat. So that was the color on my Rock Island Compact 1911. Alright, now we're going to take this down further by removing the firing pin and the extractor. We'll take the extractor out by driving through this pin right there. I'm going to drive it through from the bottom out the top, and then we're going to depress this plunger here. That should release the firing pin. Now this is a replacement firing pin. It's generally recommended if you have the cast iron firing pins to go ahead and replace them with milled steel. I think this is a Harrington. Tried to get as close to original as I can. Some of the firing pins invalidate the pistol safety, and I wasn't going to go for that, so I went with this one. It works pretty good so far. So we'll go ahead and reinstall that after it's all done. This barrel assembly here with the rollers, this can be broken down further by taking out this pin, driving this one through. It's right here. And driving on through, that'll release the entire assembly here, including these little rollers. So when you take out that pin, drive it through, this will be able to come free. These things are going to be loose, but watch out because they're going to want to roll everywhere. So I won't need to do that because I'm just painting the frame in the slide. So I'm going to put in the parts bin, and then we're going to move on to driving through this pin and removing the extractor. Now, as you can see, got this pin 3/4 of the way through, so we're just going to go ahead and finish driving that through. There's that. Extractor. extractor spring. And we're going to remove this plunger here. And there should be a little spring underneath that as well. Looks a bit like that. And that should do it. Everything's out. So we'll tape that up. I don't know if I'm going to drift this rear side out or not. I haven't decided on that. I might. I just paint through it. I don't have any intention of replacing it anytime soon, so I may just paint over it. Okay, next up. Some more work on the frame here. And we're going to be releasing this takedown lever, slide stop rather. And we're going to do that by driving through this pin right here. Okay, now we want to drive out the hold open pin. So it's right there. The hold open latch. Some people have an kind of a newer augmented one with a lip that makes it a little easier to close the slide, since it's a single action weapon. But this one works alright, and then we're just going to keep this for a while. Okay, so now that we've removed that, just pushed up on that. And so we've released the takedown latch here, and its latch spring. Now, some of that grease off my hands. Now we're just going to take off the magazine catch, which can be a little tricky because it's a European style magazine catch. And it's held in place. This is all one piece. held in place by the tension of the hammer spring here. So you have to grab a hold of this, push in, and release it from this lip. Pull out without eating a bunch of spring. So let's see if we can do this. We're getting there. Now we're going to remove the trigger pivot pin here, driving it just below the surface so we can get this plate off. We're going to drive in this sear ejector pin, again just below this side of the frame, just to get this. Well, it doesn't depend on. I'm not going to drive it all the way through yet. And then we're going to loosen up this pivot nut here. Then we can take this plate off. Okay, that's off. Pop off this plate. That trigger pin wasn't all the way down. Didn't want to come off. So, here we are. You'll see how this is machined rather crudely, but very specifically. So when you put it in, it's going to have to be in just so. Now, I'm going to release that. There's actually a wire spring right in here. And it's right there. That's going to have to come out to release the tension on this trigger bar. Cleaning up a lot of these mating parts is really going to help your trigger pull, so I might be doing that later on. Okay. From here we're going to go ahead and disassemble this trigger assembly. By that I mean just pop it off. So I want to clean that up and reassemble it. It's a little gunky, but we can take care of that. We'll just leave that pin in there for now. Now we want to push through this hammer pivot bolt. This one right here. So we're going to push it through from this side. Goes your hammer. And we're going to just push this pin all the way through then, the ejector pin, releasing that whole assembly. You might want to take note of the orientation now before and we'll just push that pin through. Your extractor is held in place by the same pin. Just push that safety right on through to the other side. And you do have to push it out straight. And then the safety detent spring, the hold up and catch, it's all part of the same spring. You see, there's the end of one end, and the other end is actually embedded inside of there. And there it is, completely detail stripped, along with the barrel, along with the slide. The barrel we're going to leave as is. So we're just going to degrease it, well, more sand it first a little bit, rough up the surface, and then we're going to degrease it. And we're going to start painting. And I'll show you when we're done. Alright, and we're back. As you can see, I've Duracoated the frame here. HK black. Slide as well. Actually did the bottom of the magazine plates. And these I got third party from some website. Pretty interesting, I like these. I like these lips on there. Kinda neat. Okay. And now in addition to Duracoating this, I put in some grip tape, skater tape, on the front, back. A little paint there, and I buffed up the feed ramp, and just a touch of paint on the front sight there as well. Okay, now we're going to put it all back together again. So let's begin at the beginning. We're going to start with the slide here. Let's go ahead and put the firing pin back in. With a semicircle cutout right here. And that mates with the semicircle cutout right here on the firing pin plunger lock. See, it's exactly like right there. And oriented like this as you're looking down on the slide. Let's go ahead and put that in. go. So we'll test that for function then when we get the slide back on the frame. And let's move on to the extractor. Alright, here comes the extractor, which you can see I'm polished up a little bit. Also polished up the trigger and the hammer as well a little bit. Just thought it'd be interesting. Okay, so I shot the spring with the ballast stall as well as the extractor just to preserve it a little bit. So, goes the spring. Looking through the hole in the slide, match that up. Alright, and that's in. And that finishes up the slide. Move on to the frame. Okay, now we're going to assemble. This is the trigger assembly. Trigger spring, pin, trigger bar. On the spring there's a long tail here. Here's the pin that goes right there. This tail of the spring will catch on this side of that pin. And then this part of the spring hooks right into this second hole. See, I've got the spring screwed up here, so I'm just going to ease it out a little. There we go. And that's done. Keep an eye on this. Next we put in the hold open safety catch spring and a short curved end and a long tail on the other end. The short end's going to hook right into this gap. The middle is going to nest in here. This long tail is going to go into this channel. It's cut right in there. Piece of tape to hold around, and we put in the safety. Just put her in straight. I've got the trigger bar kind of just stuck back down in there just to get it out of the way. Okay, moving on. Now as the sear and the extractor sit inside here, let's extract the ejector. I'll put this pin in there to keep that in place. Your sear is going to sit right there. And your sear spring is going to go right inside here, trapped by this pin. The tricky part, and this is the part I hate the most, is getting this sear spring positioned in here, like this. The long tail is actually going to be inside of this side of this little channel here. So try not to lose this. I chase this around all the time. Luckily I haven't lost it permanently yet, but I've spent too much time looking for it after it flies out of your hand, so be careful. And I will get back in touch with you when I get this all assembled, because I don't know the best way of doing this, so I just kind of have to fumble around until I get it all together. This little sub-assembly all together, so it sounds like a cop-out, but I'm just going to waste a lot of your time until I get that in there, so I'll get back with you when I get it done. Okay, that took a lot of fussing, but finally got the pin in through there. The extractor, through the sear spring, out the other side. The short end of the sear spring is right up on top here of the sear, and the long tail is in there. This is not a complete instructional, obviously. You really should take a look at some additional resources. There's a couple on the internet, but not many on a complete strip down like this. This is the only reason why I'm doing it. But not everything obviously is going to be clear from this video, so please take it upon yourself to do a little further research. The last thing you want to do is get stuck with an incomplete concept of how to do this once you're in the middle of it. So, okay, and we move on from here. Just putting the trigger bar in place. there, as you can see. Okay, everything's tight here. Well, everything's in there, and just keeping tension on it. Okay, so we're good for now. Moving on. Next is the installation of the hammer. And the hammer pivot pin, which I've repainted. Now we've got the hammer strut and hammer spring. As you can see, they go right inside there. And then this part will get reattached to the bottom here. So you have to press this in against the tension of the spring up into the base here, and then it seats in here. Actually, I have that backwards. So that seats in here like that. No, that was right. Of course, you have to do it while the spring is on. That's what makes it the tricky part. So, and then watch me struggle with that, and I will get back to you when I'm done. Okay, so I put on the hammer strut and the hammer spring and the magazine catch, that's the name of it. So what I did is I put some electrical tape on these pliers so as not to mar up the finish as much as possible. Push this up, compress the spring, and drop it into this recessed part there, right here. Takes some effort, and the idea is pushing down on it, which is why I use this block wood without bending up anything else here. It's a bit of a hassle, but like everything else with the CZ52, it's really a bear putting this back together. But it's interesting, you learn a lot. So, okay, moving on. Now I've just put the plate back in. I had to. There's a bit of a lip you have to go under. You can see that there. In order to fit it into the recessed under part of this plate, I had to pound out the pin for the trigger, and that way I could fit this recessed part underneath in there. And then this part here, it's actually part of the other side of the frame. So the plate fits in there. And then taking a rubber-ended mallet, just kind of making sure everything. Drive that pin back in there. It's getting there. So, and then looks like the nut's got to go back on. Make sure when you're putting it back on not to cross thread it. Okay, that's on there. So we can take this off now. And let's see here. Yep, this guy's going back in. There, but it needs a spring. Okay, spring goes in here. Shoot it with a little ballistol. Just gonna protect it. In she goes. Next comes the hold open pin. So keeping that down. Spring orientated, right? That does it. Alright, looking good. Seems to work when we do this. Okay, seems to work alright. Safety seems to engage as well. So, alright, the preliminary function test seems to check out. Most of it's back, so it's looking good. Almost there. Alright, I finished driving this pin in. It wandered out, and while I was reassembling it now. That should be good to go, so. Okay, grips are on. Grip tape's still holding pretty good. Let's put this thing together. She is. No magazine in there. Chamber's empty. Good. 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 And, oh, I'll do a function check with a piece of wood later. Just want to see what she looks like. Not too bad. Interesting. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I couldn't show you everything. My camera is limited. I did what I could. Check some other resources on the internet. There's not too many, but there's a few. So, hope you learned a little something. I know I always learn something when I'm taking apart guns and putting them back together again. So, alright, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. This is Kev Tango signing out.